Dobry den, I'm Jennifer, and this is the first edition of Smaryczanko a Snadleden, where I discuss both sides of a Czech current event and give a foreigner's perspective. This month, Irish fashion store Primark opened its first store in the Czech Republic on the storied Wenceslas Square. The line to get in stretched all the way back to St. Wenceslas' statue, and people came all the way from Liberec. Or perhaps it was just that one guy that every reporter seemed to talk to. For the uninitiated, Primark is a cheap clothing retailer popular in Western Europe and the East Coast of the United States. I had never even heard of Primark until I went into one in Berlin a few years ago. And by cheap, I mean cheap. Women's shirts go for as low as 55 crowns. A shirt for half the price of a Starbucks coffee, which is overpriced. You get what I mean. Now, I'm not here to lecture anyone on the destructive nature of fast fashion. Suffice to say, we all know it leaves a nasty footprint on the environment and on the people who manufacture it. So instead, I'll just address what I see as the geopolitical nature of the story. Before now, Czechs only had access to Primark when they went abroad, and they would often go to Dresden or Vienna or Berlin just to shop there. Consumer goods are often inexplicably more expensive in the Czech Republic than in Germany or Austria, even though the salaries are lower. The opening of a new Western cheap fashion brand allows the Czechs to spread their consumerist wings. I've even heard some say that it feels like the West is arriving in this country with these fast fashion brands that are so popular abroad. And we expats living in the Czech Republic can now feel at home, exploiting Southeast Asian labor just like we used to back in America. Primark is also creating 300 new jobs in this country. Surely that's a good thing. Not to mention all those Instagram influencers who can now double their wardrobe on a receptionist's salary. Look, I'm not innocent. Fast fashion has definitely hung in my closet in the past. I say in the past because it quickly disintegrated into dish rags. But I understand the allure of fast fashion. When you have an average salary of 35,000 crowns per month, as the average Czech does, 3 sweaters for the price of one can seem really appealing, even if they only last half as long. And when I was living on an English teacher's salary, there wasn't much more that I could afford. But watching those Czechs who lined up in Wenceslas Square for hours in 30-degree heat and hearing that firefighters had to spray them down to prevent sunstroke made me think of those Americans who leave their Thanksgiving dinner tables early to go wait all night in cold, dark parking lots on the promise of getting a Black Friday discount. At least the Czechs were more civilized and no injuries or deaths were reported. I can tell you that personally, it's somewhat cringeworthy when I see Black Friday signs in countries all over Europe. Instead of adopting the American holiday, whose only purpose is for all of us to give thanks for what we have, the rest of the world has adopted the one day that everybody goes insane because of deep discounts. I feel like they've embraced our worst ideas instead of our best. And it left me wondering, what is it about the possibility of getting something cheap that makes people so excited or even makes them willing to suffer? I just walked past the Primark queue, which a week later is still there, and I noticed that there was no shortage of fast fashion within one city block. There was H&M and Bershka and Zara and Mango and C&A. If the Czechs who were standing in line really just wanted some cheap clothing, they could have gotten it at any of those stores. So why the excitement over Primark? But perhaps it wasn't the idea of getting something cheap that excited the Czechs who were standing in line. Perhaps it was the idea that finally this store they've been traveling to the west for, and to Vienna, which is technically east, finally this store was in their very own capital, and that gave them some sort of pride. It's their own little slice of Western culture, like cowboy boots were during communism or Levi's shirts are today. Seriously, what is up with the Levi's shirts? I see them everywhere. It reminded me of the opening of the first McDonald's in this country in 1992 on Lazarska, which opened to much fanfare, celebration, and media coverage. I can totally understand the Czechs' excitement at being able to order a Big Mac in their very own capital. After all, they were only a few years out of communism, and the Golden Arches were practically an emblem of America. They could literally taste American capitalism. But that was 29 years ago, and it's been over 30 since the fall of communism. Surely the Czechs aren't still dying to consume something just because it comes from the West. Fast food and fast fashion, the Czechs know just as well as any of us that too much fast food will put you in an early grave, and too much fast fashion will do the same to the planet. I wonder if Primark was a retailer from Russia or from China, would the Czechs be embracing it as much? Or is it simply because it comes from the West? And here's the thing. Fast fashion companies are banking on Central and Eastern European countries to help keep them alive. A study by UBS revealed that fast fashion companies could decline by 10 to 30% in the next 5 to 10 years in the West. This is because consumers in the West are learning to consume more sustainably. These companies are actively pressing eastward, hoping that the Central and Eastern Europeans will want what the West already has. And that really makes me mad because it assumes that Czechs and Slovaks and Poles and Hungarians care more about getting something for cheap than they care about their principles. Personally, I would love to see Czechs enthusiastically adopting what's best from the West instead of what's worst. Like the movements of minimalism and slow food and slow fashion, or even better, embrace Czech producers and Czech designers, and foreign brands that have a reputation for paying their workers well. Secondhand clothing stores are already all over the city, so that's a great start. I want the Czechs to skip over the fast fashion stage of history and instead create their own style of conscious consumerism that the West can learn from, like their rejection of using checks in banking. Checks are really dumb. I hated balancing my checkbook. And the Czech Republic just said, no, we're not doing those. Those are dumb. Although, maybe I've got this all wrong, and the big queue at Primark has nothing to do with the Czechs' fascination with all things Western. Maybe there's something more specific to Czech character that allowed those people to stand in a scorchingly hot line for hours. I had to laugh at this photo I saw online where one person in the queue asks, what exactly is Primark? And the second person says, I don't know. I'm here for the queue. Sounds Czech to me. So what's your view? Is fast fashion a good addition in the Czech Republic or not? Let me know in the comments below. Do you have a topic you'd like me to cover in Američanko a s nadhledem? Let me know in the comments below. Tak, ahoj!